There are millions of channels on YouTube, and you, one of the 2.49 billion users, do not have time to watch all of them. And that's not entirely a bad thing, because a non-inconsiderable amount of content from those channels can feel mass-produced, formulaic, or just generic. But they aren't all like that. Some channels still produce content as a form of creativity and self-expression. Like I said before though, you don't have time to find those. And thankfully, you don't have to, because that's my job. Today, we're going to be talking about 3 such channels. 3 obscure channels that you should be watching. The first channel I want to talk about is an animation and music channel called Nobey. In the making of this video, I reached out to Nobey, and they were kind enough to answer my many questions, so a lot of the information in this section is directly from the source. As with most of the content we discuss on this channel, I recommend you go and watch projects from all 3 of these channels first, because it really is some great stuff that is best experienced firsthand.
Sorry we had to meet so late. Anyway, you got the stuff?
The first video uploaded on the Nobey channel is Milk Legacy from February 5th, 2022. This video, like all of the others, is drawn entirely with a computer mouse, and as we go on, you'll see how impressive that is. Most of these early videos are very quiet and would be more eerie if it weren't for the funky music tracks playing in the background.
Hello, and welcome to my fancy new restaurant.
Making an obelisk is where we start to get into some atmospheric storytelling. Set in a fantasy world, it follows a student sorcerer attempting to create an obelisk. This process entails a combination of percolated chocolate, peanut butter, and a B. Pylonius drytonanine and goo in the magic box. After that, you have to do some hand waving, say a spell, and in theory, this should summon an obelisk. It all goes wrong though, and the elder magician is horribly disappointed, and it turns out the student failed to percolate the chocolate in a typical beginner's mistake. Then the whole thing is thrown in the trash. Most of these videos have very little scripting, feeling like a stream of consciousness rather than very thought-out dialogue. While that may sound like it would degrade the quality, it makes interactions feel realistic and spur of the moment. In this way, it gives me a lot of the same vibes as something like Smiling Friends, a show often known for its realistic and conversational feeling. One of my favorites is Gup, in which this weird guy comes into a small supermarket. He tells a new employee working the cash register that he's here for Gup, and the employee has no idea what he's talking about. He asks his manager about the item, and the manager reveals that when the Gup guy comes, they just write Gup on some random item and give it to him. The more he likes what he gets, the better the reward he gives to the worker. The employee decides that today's Gup should be a toy frog he found at the scene of a car crash on the way to work. It seems like a good choice though, because he receives a rotating turquoise traffic pylon. And that's a really great reward. I'm not sure who wouldn't want that, but a little later, the employee goes into shock and dies. Probably unrelated to that sick pylon though. While the uploads remained pretty regular for the remainder of 2022, this was still very much a hobby, with Nobey balancing college and animation work. Gradually though, the channel began to do better and better and allow more of Nobey's talents to combine. One of these talents is music, which is why you'll find longer audio-focused posts like this one called Interlinked Memory Distant Connections, which features music from Nobey's original album, Blurred Lives. Music and videos like these are why I like channels like this so much, because on its face, this is an unsettling and eerie video. Yet at the same time, the dark ambiance is oddly calming, albeit in a very surreal way. Speaking of surrealism, it's time to take a look at The Merc Incident Broadcast 2003. Everything is nice and normal in the beginning with just a standard weather broadcast. The presenter mentions that something called the Merc is in town. Weather correspondent Cindy is supposed to be covering the arrival from out in the woodlands, but it looks like she has already succumbed to the Merc. They then go live to Storm Chaser Mike, but this segment is also cut short because Mike has become a restful cube. The presenter is the next to undergo a strange transformation where he becomes a radio tower, or internet tower. I'm not really sure. The point is, nobody is staying in their initial state. We, mercifully, are spared knowledge of the Merc's actual nature. But remember this theme of people changing states of being, and specifically remember Storm Chaser Mike, because he's one of the first characters introduced with a continuing story. Living with a friend who transcended humanity is about Mike's home life and the struggles of his roommate, Gene. Which, I mean, let's just consider Gene's situation. He goes into this with a cool storm chaser roommate who probably makes pretty good money, and who was gonna be gone a lot of the time. And now he's the single parent of an unemployed restful cube who just hovers over the couch all day, watching daytime TV with his eyes closed. On top of refusing to find a job, Mike smells terrible, so the very kind and long-suffering Gene takes him out back and sprays him with a garden hose, which Mike is really into.
You're enjoying this way too much, aren't you?
Yeah, kinda.
Thankfully, he eventually hits up Indeed and gets a job at Binko's convenience store, and while it may be a little less fun than being a storm chaser, he's still employed, which is a huge win. I'm pretty sure Gene helped him get the job though, because he also works there. Anyway, a lady comes into the gas station wanting a deal on a Threes burger and has a scroll advertising it as available at Binko's. Mike doesn't think they have that, and his roommate coworker confirms they don't have that. She doesn't really take that too well and says she's going back to the underground America 2 where the mole people live, so big lore drop. Also, there's a poster in the break room depicting what looks like a skeleton wizard with the word wanted under it. Not really sure if this means there's a sorcerer criminal on the loose or if Binko's needs a skeleton wizard. Either way, it's really great to see Mike getting his little invisible cube feet back under him and getting out into the world again. Oh yeah, and it looks like that wizard poster was wanted in the criminal sense because Pontiac, the Binko's security officer, or maybe manager, calls Gene and Mike into his control room to dispatch them to get rid of a wizard who's selling dangerous mystical items to teenagers outside. Yeah, hey listen, it's editing me here later. I just saw this video called Convenience Store Creatures that for some reason I completely just ignored when I was putting all this together, and it explains some of the characters in the gas station. Specifically, Pontiac here is not the manager, but he hangs out in the manager's office, which is strange, and he'll only be friendly to you if he knows your search history is clean. There's also this chemical wizard, which I'm pretty sure is the one on the wanted poster, but I'm also pretty sure he's not the one that we actually end up seeing in the video. So, you know, there's that. Anyway, back to present day me. Mike thinks they can reason with the wizard, and they go outside to confront him. Oddly, the wizard faults Mike for being a restful cube working at a gas station. Gene threatens the wizard with pepper spray, and he runs off though, so everything's okay, but Mike decides that he does not like wizards very much anymore. That's all we've got of the Mike story right now, but hopefully there's more to come. If Mike's lifestyle and physical state are appealing to you, then check out Nobey's Music to Become a Restful Cube 2. I started watching all the way through to try and get a little cubistic for the making of this video, but backed out at about the half-hour mark when the hallucinations started. A lot of the videos Nobey has made are tests to see if he would like to make them into a series at some point. Generally, the answer is no, but not always, like in the case of the pink guy who lives under the floorboards. Posted on May 23rd, 2024, hey man, don't freak out, I just have a question, is Nobey 1's most popular video at the time of writing this, with 2.8 million views. From what I can tell, it's also the channel's first video to get over 1 million views, so pretty cool. Basically, there's this little pink guy living under the floorboards of this person's house, who I'm going to call homeowner Steve, and he's waking Steve up to ask for milk because he needs warm milk to go to sleep. Eventually, he accepts that there just isn't any milk in the house, but makes sure that Steve is going to buy some as soon as possible. The next time he wakes Steve up, it's for a slightly more pressing reason, as he has set the house on fire. After Steve got milk, he noticed that there were chocolate chips, sugar, and flour in the kitchen. He gave Steve a week to make chocolate chip cookies, and when that didn't happen, took matters into his own hands. Thankfully, he called the fire department though, so things should be alright, and he lulls Steve back into the arms of sleep, aided by smoke inhalation. The next time we see him, he's lying beside Steve on his bed, and for some reason has Steve's toothbrush? It turns out that this time a rat has driven him from the safety of his floorboard home. Hopefully Pink Guy's story will continue to evolve because he makes a lot of cryptic mentions to the fact that he can't go outdoors and thinking it's strange that Steve sleeps at night. A lot of the videos and concepts on this channel begin as a single sentence. In fact, Nobey 1 keeps a document of these single sentence idea fragments and often builds an entire animation just from a few words. This extremely simplistic yet incredibly complicated method combined with the loose scripting makes every video feel new and individual, something a lot of animation content is unable to do reliably. Overall, the channel captures a very odd collection of feelings. Yes, it's eerie and surreal, but the retro art style and design makes me almost nostalgic for an idealized 2000s era American city. Nobey 1 really has a passion for what he does, and hopefully that passion will give us more of ex-Storm Chaser Mike soon. Until then, you should go and check out the Nobey 1 channel through the link in the description and follow him on Spotify. If you like the videos of his animated content, I'm sure you'll like his music too. Speaking of music, let's stop glazing and move on to our next channel, Rude Jack Art. Rude Jack Art posted his first video on February 20th, 2021 and shows us Sonic in what has the energy of a bowling alley, looking hungrily at a heavily loaded hot dog before full screen text appears and wishes us happy Lent. And I know what you're thinking, why should you be watching this channel for Catholic Sonic content? But don't worry, there's more. Jack was another creator that I was lucky enough to talk with in the preparation for this video, so this segment, like the previous one, is based on direct information. The next video is Rude Jack Art Demo Reel 2020, and I mean, it's a demo reel. I don't really need to describe it. The thing that is worth mentioning though is that it's a good demo reel and shows that Jack is actually a very skilled animator, especially when it comes to putting known characters in funny situations. His work reminds me a lot of Ethereal Snake in this way, which if you don't know who that is, I just did a pretty cool video about him too, and you should go check it out. The early life of this channel is mostly stuff Jack made during college, and gradually grew into an online portfolio through which animation work could find him rather than the other way around. But the instability of this method was not something Jack enjoyed, and eventually he decided to focus entirely on making YouTube animations, rather than just posting things as advertisements of his services. A very clear aesthetic of the Rude Jack Art channel is that of 60s and 70s media, and I think that's very clear in the maximalism of a lot of his art. A series that shows this very clearly is the Mario Brothers series. These always start the same way, shots of late 20th century New York getting progressively more focused until we arrived at Bleecker Bob's Records. The brothers Mario are clearly regulars here and come in to look for music, but always get so lost in what they find that they end up on cosmic journeys of dance and rhythm. The art style of the characters matches their surroundings so well that the mixture of photographs and drawings is almost unnoticeable. I don't know what it is about the idea of these plumber brothers going to a grimy 70s record shop, but the vibe is just really incredible and not something that I ever would have thought would work as well as it does. And that's not just me that thinks that. The Mario videos are some of the most popular on the channel for a reason. My favorite among these, and one of my favorite videos on the channel overall, is It's a Stone in Focus Luigi. It starts off normally with them going into Bob's to look at albums, but they find one with a completely unreadable title containing Selected Ambient Works Volume 2. If this is a real band and I'm just an idiot, let me know, because that's not unlikely. As soon as they behold the album, their grip on reality starts to slip, and they gradually disassociate entirely with the world around them. If you've been watching this channel for any time at all, you know that this is my kind of shit. Their vacant expressions convey distant fear, surrealism, and sudden awareness, but most of all, a sort of peaceful enlightenment. Old school shots of the city move in the background, mostly in time-lapse, and we get this sick shot of the interior of Peach's castle from Mario 64. Then we snap back suddenly to them standing in Bob's wearing those old music sample headphones with the coiled cables and staring into the void. You put this vibe right here into a game, a movie, whatever, and that's all I am playing or watching for the rest of my life. Overall, Rude Jack Art uses music and interesting takes on pop culture figures to tell funny and unique stories by combining references, media, and art styles in ways that are refreshingly creative. And that brings us to our last bit of lore about this channel, Vaudevillains. Vaudevillains is a hand-drawn indie beat-em-up born from the flowery passion of Spite Frog Studios and Rude Jack, and it actually looks kinda great. The weird handmade feeling of the puppets and the retro vaudeville references are really satisfying, and I would definitely recommend checking it out. On the topic of games, we arrive at our next channel. It's time to talk about Dreading Mortality. Having only started uploading on June 23rd, 2024, Dreading Mortality has grown a very impressive following in such a short time. According to his Linktree, he is doing the slowest Elden Ring RP known to man, and this refers to his incredibly atmospheric Journal of a Tarnished series.
The unfortunate encounter faded into oblivion, and dazed I found myself in a puddle of muddy water.
This is exactly what it sounds like. The first-person perspective of an initially bewildered Tarnished waking up in Limgrave and fighting his way through a bizarre and violent world. The writing style is what makes this channel stand out because it feels like you're reading an old, low fantasy novel from the 70s, with antiquated language, gritty details, and medieval nature.
Before I knew it, the foul head spewed flames without regard for even its companions. At this point, I noticed somebody within it. A grey and scrawny fellow sat inside, apparently moving it with some devilish machinery.
It perfectly matches the world of Elden Ring. And this has been an issue I've always had with Souls games in general, and Elden Ring especially, is the lack of story. And before you start writing a comment saying that actually the Souls games do have lore, you just have to look for it, I know. In fact, the lore of most of them is good. I just wish I didn't have to dig through 8 pages of combined item descriptions to learn what the f this castle is. I mean, there are whole channels dedicated just to breaking down the lore, a lot of which I do watch because, like I said, it's f***ing awesome. And I get it. Most of the time, not showing the audience is a talent of storytelling all its own, because some things are better off stage. This gives the bleak worlds of Souls games that distinctively eerie feeling, like you've arrived just after the fall of an ancient civilization. But what I'm saying is, this absence of active lore combined with an open world that is mostly devoid of interactions often leaves me feeling disconnected from the greater story of Elden Ring. And as you get going, things do start to happen a little bit more, but in the beginning, it's just you and Torrent. I say all of this because Journals of a Tarnished makes me want to play Elden Ring again just for the vibes of the story, whereas before, it was mostly because I wanted to beat the fire giant. And since a lot of people ask, the voice used for the voiceover itself is not that of Dreading Mortality. According to the standard description accompanying his videos, it is the licensed replica of an actual guy, whose identity is not revealed, and whose speech is generated through 11 labs. Also according to this description, he plans to do the entire game, and for it to take at least a year. And depending on upload speed, it may end up taking even longer than that. Honestly, however long it takes is fine with me, because I love these digestible length videos. But if you prefer longer form stuff, then he does post episode compilations every 6 episodes or so, and those can be anywhere from 30 minutes to over an hour. If you like even shorter content and 5 to 10 minutes is a little too much commitment, then check out his Instagram where he uploads much shorter profile-oriented content that are highlights from the longer videos. I don't know what he plans to do after Elden Ring, but I wouldn't mind seeing another game like this done in a similar style. It is refreshingly singular. So there you have it, 3 obscure YouTube channels that you should be watching. Check the description for links to Nobey 1, Rude Jack Art, and Dreading Mortality, as well as a few others that contributed to the creation of the content shown. If you like this video, then feel free to subscribe here for more, and that's all I've got for you. Bye.